The Voynich manuscript is just so fascinating. If I've landed on your FYP and you're new here, I've been translating the Voynich manuscript through Modern Irish for over a year now. It has been such a remarkable experience, and I've recently opened up my research into a more collaborative process. So I'm working with a researcher that's doing a lot of geographical work. We came across something so exceptional today. The recording will be posted to my YouTube later today. There's a lot that isn't related to the Voynich in there, so apologies in advance for all the small talk, but we found something absolutely incredible. And then afterwards, I spoke to someone from Ireland. We had a fantastic call, and she mentioned knowing a couple of really interesting spots, and she actually offered to go to any location that we may need. So that's super interesting. I'm hopefully going to be in contact with a few people from different Irish universities soon. And then the TLB podcast is being released soonish. The host just had a baby. Yay! Congratulations, James. He's a dad. But I have some really fun things to share with you today. I wish I could pack so much into this, but I'm going to try to keep it under 5 minutes, so hang tight. So I'd like to talk about duality and connotations when it comes to translating this text through Modern Irish. So there are so many homonyms. Like any other language, there are a lot of homonyms in Irish. And often the homonyms are slightly related in interesting ways. So different layers of meaning can be extracted from just a small amount of text. As you may know, I've started to refer to the manuscript as the water doctrine, and there are a few different reasons for that. But let's take a look at the word water. So here is the word water. It's this letter plus the suffix that sort of means an adjective of this. This suffix on its own also means knowledge and has a bunch of other homonyms as well. When I first started translating, I thought this was related to dough for two, because if we separate it this way, we do see a two, dough. Now let's look at the word dough for two, which is dough. This can be spelled a couple of different ways, representing two. And the D on its own doesn't have a precise meaning, but in context it can mean to, from, toward, your, of. But it has the connotation of infinity, or the continuation, sort of like life force, life source, or God. So let's take another look at this word. So this word literally translates to created thing or element of the earth. And it usually has a connotation of water. This suffix is usually an adjective. So it's this thing, like, or ish. So it can read as do, to, li, secondly, or dually. Now, if we break it even further and we take this section, this is knowledge, the word for knowledge, and then this D is like source knowledge. Now let's look at the word do for two. We have the a fada here. This means from whatever precedes it in the language. So if you see this at the end of a word, it's usually from whatever precedes it. So it would mean from source. To is from source. And if we think about water in a chemistry way, in a chemical way, water is from to, it's H2O. It is secondary in terms of elements. So like I said, the D on its own doesn't have an exact precise definition, but could represent source, but in context in a sentence, it can also mean to, from, your, of, toward. There's a whole philosophical conversation here that I won't get into, but this is very important. Many people with different translations of the Voynich also consider this a D. It's also said on the forum that several people think that this is an S, which I find really fascinating. They're not translating through Irish, but they generally understand this to be a D or an S. When I translate this through Modern Irish as an S, though, this is where things get really fascinating. Created thing or element then becomes I, suil. And this reminded me of this time in my mid-20s, I kind of randomly met Neil deGrasse Tyson twice, and I saw him talk. He gave a speech for a bunch of ophthalmologists in New York, And part of his speech, he mentions that God is in the eye. And it just reminded me of that. A whole theological and philosophical discussion is probably there, but I'll leave it at that. Anyway, keep an eye out for my next post on YouTube, TikTok, and Substack. Bye!